Welcome to the Deep Dive, your go-to source for cutting through the noise and truly understanding complex topics. Today, we're unearthing a pretty significant challenge facing the legal sector. Cybersecurity. Consider this. In the past year alone, a staggering 1 in 5 U.S. law firms was targeted by a cyber attack.
Wow.
And nearly 1 in 10 actually suffered data loss or exposure. That's not just a statistic. It really feels like a wake-up call for an industry built on trust. Yeah. Our deep dive today explores these intense converging pressures law firms face, from escalating cyber threats and the dual force of artificial intelligence to a really complex new wave of global regulations. Our insights are drawn from this comprehensive analysis titled The Resilient Law Firm, 2025 Cyber Convergence, which breaks down these challenges and, offers a kind of blueprint for survival. So our mission for you, whether you're in the legal field or maybe just curious about where the digital world is headed, is to give you a clear understanding of why cybersecurity is now so foundational to firm governance, ethical practice, and crucially, client trust. And before we jump in, just a quick word from our sponsor. If you're looking for curated cybersecurity solutions, do visit www.cisomarketplace.com. They're helping organizations navigate this very complex landscape we're about to discuss. So, let's unpack this. It really sounds like law firms are in a critical spot right now.
It really is striking. It's how cybersecurity has transformed, from just a back office IT concern into something, existential for law firms. It's directly impacting their ability to even practice law. The report suggests that for firms with, let's say, weaker controls, the probability of a significant incident could be as high as 50% to 70% in the coming year.
50 to 70%. That's a huge gamble for any business.
It really is.
That figure is pretty sobering. It makes you wonder, why law firms? Why are they such a uniquely attractive target?
Well, it's because they're not just storing routine data, are they? They're holding what our source calls the crown jewels of confidentiality.
Right, the crown jewels. Can you elaborate on that? What kind of data are we actually talking about here? The stuff attackers are really after.
Absolutely. Law firms are essentially a one-stop shop for cyber criminals because they aggregate this incredibly sensitive, high-value information. We're talking corporate and financial secrets. Think M&A strategies, confidential IP, high-value transaction details. You might remember the 2016 attacks on Kravis Swain and Moore and Weil Gotshal and Manges.
Vaguely, yes.
M&A information was stolen and then directly used for over $4 million in insider trading. So this isn't just data theft. It's like a direct pipeline to illicit profits.
Wow, that's immediate direct financial gain just from hacking a law firm. But it's not just corporate secrets, is it? There's more.
Exactly. They also hold sensitive litigation and legal strategy documents, privileged communications, discovery materials, confidential case plans. If that stuff gets leaked, it would totally sabotage a client's case or, give the other side a massive unfair advantage. And then there's the aggregated client data. Think medical records, criminal histories, PII, deeply personal stuff. The 2023 breach at Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe was tragic. It exposed data from over 637,000 individuals because, as an incident response firm themselves, they were holding sensitive data from other breach victims.
Oh, wow.
It created what the source calls a breach within a breach, a really complex sort of domino effect.
And beyond just the data itself, there's this fascinating vulnerability in the very nature of legal work, that deep-seated trust involved. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh.
It sounds like the very things that define legal practice confidentiality and trust are actually being weaponized against them.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really points towards the need for a zero-trust mindset, The traditional sort of collegial nature of law firms, which is built on inherent trust, can ironically become a cultural hurdle for implementing modern defenses.
A cultural hurdle. That's interesting.
Cybercriminals have just become incredibly adept at exploiting this trust. The most prominent example, wire transfer and conveyancing fraud. Legal transactions often involve these huge one-off payments, sometimes to brand new bank accounts, which is, an exceptionally high-risk scenario.
You can see why.
The 2025 case, DeLuca v. Sutter Williams, LLC, saw a firm tricked into wiring, I think it was $442,600 from an estate, all because of a sophisticated impersonator. The complex communication webs in legal work just make verifying identities notoriously difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's not just the exploitation of trust, right? The internal structure of the legal sector itself seems to present these unique vulnerabilities. The source mentioned a preparedness paradox.
Indeed, yeah. Despite that shocking statistic, 1 in 5 U.S. firms facing attacks, there's the significant gap in readiness. A 2025 survey revealed 65% of firms were unfamiliar with their post-breach obligations. 65%.
That's high.
And 42% were unsure if they could even recover properly from a significant attack. It's sort of like having a fire extinguisher but, not knowing how to use it, or even if it's charged.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the resource disparity. Large firms, they can afford dedicated cybersecurity teams, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But small and medium firms, which are the vast majority, often lack that investment. That makes them, as the report puts it, easy prey.
That's a huge blind spot. And I can imagine how much law firms rely on third-party services these days, creating another potential way in.
Precisely. Outsourcing and these supply chain dependencies, especially with managed service providers or MSPs, they create a concentrated risk. An attack on just one MSP can compromise dozens, maybe hundreds, of law firms simultaneously. We saw this with the 2023 ransomware attack against CTS in the UK. Big disruption across the legal sector there.
Right.
Plus, you've got the rapid adoption of cloud services, remote working tools, bring your own device policies, all often happening without the corresponding security investment needed. It just dramatically expands their digital footprint, their attack surface.
So given all these unique vulnerabilities, how are attackers actually operating in 2025? It really seems like they're getting scarily good at targeting law firms.
Yeah.
And like you said, even the best tech isn't enough if people are still, falling for these sophisticated scams.
That's really the crux of it, isn't it? How do you defend against an enemy that's not just technologically advanced, but also a master of human psychology? The shift is away from a simple smash and grab kind of attack to a more insidious infiltrate and leverage approach.
Infiltrate and leverage.
Which means incident response isn't just about restoring data anymore, it's a full-blown crisis management. Take ransomware, for example. It's evolved into this multi-faceted extortion strategy.
Multifaceted. What does that involve beyond just, encrypting data and demanding cash?
Oh, the modern ransomware playbook goes way beyond simple encryption. It now critically involves data exfiltration, stealing huge amounts of sensitive information before they encrypt anything.
The double extortion.
Exactly. Double extortion is pretty much standard practice now. The 2023 HWL Ebsworth breach, for instance, involved the theft of over 4 terabytes of data. 4 terabytes.
That's massive.
And if the ransom isn't paid, they escalate. They move to multifaceted extortion, threatening to publish the stolen data on the dark web, maybe contacting the firm's clients directly, even reporting the breach to regulators themselves.
Wow, that's incredibly aggressive. And I've heard the ransom demands targeting legal firms are unusually high compared to other sectors.
They absolutely are. The median demand for legal organizations in 2024 was around $1 million. That's significantly higher than the cross-industry median, which was closer to $600,000. And it's not just a random number. It reflects how attackers understand the immense pressure law firms are under to protect that attorney-client privilege and all the confidential information they hold.
Mm-hmm.
Yet paying doesn't even guarantee a good outcome. Only about 34% of organizations fully recovered their data after paying. Nearly half, 46%, paid multiple times. And a shocking 17% got nothing back at all.
So even with all this advanced tech, the human element, it still seems to be the weakest link, the primary point of failure.
Unfortunately, yes. An estimated 74% of all data breaches involve a human element somehow, whether it's, unintentional error or actual malicious action. Negligent insiders or just plain human error account for something like 60-80% of all breaches in law firms.
60 to 80%.
Yeah. This includes seemingly minor things, like sending sensitive emails to the wrong person by accident. That alone accounts for 44% of non-cyber data loss incidents. And there was a striking 2024 report that found just 1% of users were responsible for 88% of all data loss events.
1% cause 88%.
Exactly. What that tells us is that security isn't always about, widespread carelessness. It's often about pinpointing and mitigating the high-risk behaviors of a very small group. Targeted training can make a huge difference there.
That figure is really eye-opening. What about the other side, those who act with malicious intent?
While less frequent, thankfully, malicious insiders do account for maybe 25-35% of breaches at law firms. These are often, disgruntled employees or maybe even partners intentionally leaking sensitive documents. And it's primarily driven by financial gain that motivates nearly 90% of those kinds of incidents.
And then there's social engineering, which you mentioned earlier. It seems like attackers have perfected that art.
Indeed. Social engineering attacks like phishing, they remain the number one entry point, causing about 61% of all cyber incidents at law firms. And they've evolved way beyond those generic scams we used to see. Spear phishing targets specific individuals with highly personalized messages. It boasts something like a 53% success rate.
That high, wow.
Yeah. And then whaling goes after the big fish managing partners, CFOs, often aiming to trick more junior employees into making unauthorized wire transfers based on fake instructions.
Business email compromise, or BEC, that's something we hear about constantly, especially hitting law firms hard.
Oh, BEC attacks are financially devastating. In 2023, these scams cost American businesses $2.9 billion. And we saw a 37% jump in BEC incidents reported just in June 2025 alone. Attackers impersonate executives, clients, vendors, anyone to manipulate transactions, often by providing fraudulent wiring instructions just before a payment is due.
Right.
The average amount requested in a BEC wire scam in early 2025 was over $24,500.
Ouch. And it's not just internal vulnerabilities or direct attacks, is it? The interconnectedness of modern business, that seems like a huge risk too, this idea of supply chain contagion.
Exactly. A firm's security is now, inextricably linked to its entire digital supply chain. If attackers compromise a trusted third-party vendor, say an IT provider, a cloud service they rely on, they can potentially gain access to all the law firms using that service.
Right, one breach opens many doors.
Precisely. We saw this with the Proskauer Rose breach, which stemmed from an unsecured third-party server, and the huge MOVEit vulnerability that impacted countless organizations, including many law firms, and that CTS ransomware attack on the UK legal MSP I mentioned earlier. Perfect example of how one point of failure can disrupt an entire industry segment.
And speaking of advanced technology, let's pivot a bit to artificial intelligence. It really feels like a genuine double-edged sword here, doesn't it?
Mm.
On one hand, it seems like it's making the bad guys even smarter, but on the other, it could also be our most powerful defense. This creates what the source calls an asymmetry of risk for law firms. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. Basically, it means that offensive AI, the tools criminals use, is becoming incredibly cheap and easy to scale. Anyone can access powerful AI tools now. Meanwhile, robust offensive AI solutions, the ones firms need to protect themselves, they remain expensive and complex to implement and manage properly. This creates a dangerous divide, a bifurcation in the legal market. Sophisticated clients will soon start demanding AI-driven defenses as just a baseline condition of engagement. Adversarial AI is dramatically lowering the barrier to entry for highly sophisticated cybercrime.
So how exactly is AI making these attacks more sophisticated? What does that look like?
Well, generative AI is being used to craft near-perfect phishing emails, smishing texts, even vishing calls, those fake voice calls. These messages are grammatically flawless, they're contextually aware, they can mimic trusted colleagues or partners with, frankly, terrifying accuracy. By mid-2024, an estimated 40% of all business email compromise emails were already AI-generated.
40%.
Yeah. And then you have deepfakes. Attackers can create highly convincing audio or even video clones of partners or clients to instruct staff to make urgent, fraudulent wire transfers. There's been a reported 3,000% increase in deepfake fraud activity recently.
3,000%. That's genuinely terrifying. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's happening now.
It truly is. And AI is being integrated into malware itself, creating smart malware that can learn, adapt, and exploit vulnerabilities in mere minutes, just overwhelming traditional signature-based defenses. Even the AI models that law firms themselves use for legitimate purposes are becoming targets for things like data poisoning or model theft.
Okay, so we need to fight fire with fire then. What can defensive AI do to help level the playing field?
Well, defensive AI can analyze just vast quantities of data network traffic, user behavior, log files at machine speed. It can spot subtle anomalies in real time that human analysts would likely miss, things like suspicious lateral movement within a network or slow data exfiltration attempts. And upon detection, AI can trigger automated incident response actions, instantly isolating a compromised device, blocking a malicious process, often before a human can even react. It also significantly enhances things like identity and access management, or IAM, dynamically assessing login risks and enforcing more granular access policies, really fitting into that zero trust model we talked about.
But AI also seems to create these sort of self-inflicted risks, doesn't it? especially with legal staff, maybe using public generative AI tools like ChatGPT without proper oversight.
Oh, that's a huge governance imperative right now. The uncontrolled use of public generative AI by lawyers and staff can lead to massive leakage of sensitive client data, confidential information. Think about it. AI adoption by legal professionals jumped from just 19% in 2023 to 79% in 2024. Huge leap.
79%.
But only 10% of firms currently have formal policies governing its use. That's a massive gap.
Yeah.
It creates this urgent need for clear AI acceptable use policies and applying privacy by design principles when firms are procuring or developing AI solutions. The source makes it clear this asymmetry of risk will just accelerate the divide between firms that can afford and implement advanced AI defenses and those that, well, cannot.
So law firms are grappling with AI-powered attackers, these persistent human vulnerabilities. And then layered on top is this increasingly complex, almost dizzying array of regulations. It's clear it's no longer just about protecting data, is it? It's about meeting this ever-growing list of legal requirements from, well, pretty much every angle.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you risk losing clients, or worse.
Yeah, zooming out to the bigger picture again, this means cybersecurity maturity, demonstrable maturity, has become a non-negotiable prerequisite for client engagement. The focus has decisively shifted from reactive incident response, cleaning up after a mess, to proactive, auditable compliance, and the EU in particular has really set the global benchmark here.
How so? What are the key EU regulations that are really impacting law firms right now, or about to?
Well, we're seeing a significant new wave. There's the Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA, that's effective January 2025. It mandates really stringent ICT risk management, third-party oversight, and incident reporting, not just for the financial sector, but also their critical ICT providers, and that crucially includes law firms that are part of that supply chain.
Okay, so even if the firm isn't financial, if their client is.
Exactly. Then there's the NIS2 directive, effective by October 2024, that significantly expands the scope of the original NIS directive, tightens cyber hygiene rules, demands better supply chain risk management, and this is important places direct executive accountability for cyber failures, personal liability, potentially.
Wow.
And we can't forget the EU AI Act. That's being phased in starting 2025. It sets a risk-based framework for AI systems used within the EU with really strict governance requirements for systems deemed high risk. Think AI used in legal...
That's a lot coming from the EU. What about the U.S.? It always seems like more of a fragmented state-by-state kind of approach over here.
It definitely remains like a complex patchwork, as you say. More states are enacting their own comprehensive privacy laws. New Jersey, Maryland, Minnesota, Nebraska are recent examples, joining California, Virginia, and others. Maryland's MODPA, effective October 2025, for instance, looks particularly strict. It prohibits collecting sensitive data unless it's strictly necessary and bans its sale entirely. On the federal side, the SEC's cybersecurity disclosure rules are already effective. They mandate that publicly traded companies and, importantly, their advisors, including law firms, disclose material cyber incidents within just 4 business days.
4 days is tight.
Extremely tight. This puts immense pressure on law firms advising public companies because they need to help their clients meet these deadlines. It essentially makes the law firm's security their client's regulatory problem, too.
And it's not just the U.S. and EU, right?
Yeah.
It truly is a global issue.
Oh, absolutely. India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act, DPDPA, China's PIPL, Canada's Law 25 in Quebec. These are just examples of other powerful national data protection laws that firms with any kind of international footprint must navigate. And all this leads to what the source calls a compliance cascade.
Compliance cascade.
Yeah, basically a breach at a law firm can directly trigger a client's own regulatory reporting obligations, maybe under DORA or the SEC rules or something else. This means having a demonstrable, mature security posture isn't just good practice anymore, it's a commercial imperative.
Yeah.
Firms will increasingly lose business not just from being breached, but from simply not being able to prove their compliance beforehand.
Okay, so when these defenses do fail, and for many it seems like it's becoming a question of when, not if, what are the actual consequences? This particular point from the source is quite striking. It's clear a breach isn't just an IT problem anymore. It sounds like a multi-front war with really devastating financial and legal fallout.
That's a good way to put it. When defenses fail, a firm finds itself fighting on multiple fronts, often with limited resources and already compromised defenses. And crucially, evidence gathered in one proceeding, say, a regulatory investigation can potentially be used against them in another, like a malpractice suit. The initial incident response itself becomes this critical legal and strategic function from minute one.
And the costs.
The average cost for a law firm breach hit $5.008 million in 2024. That's not just a number, it's a direct, potentially crippling hit to the firm's bottom line.
That's a huge financial hit. And I imagine the impact goes well beyond just those direct costs, the cleanup costs.
Absolutely. Ransomware, for instance, can cause total operational paralysis. It halts all billable work, sometimes for weeks. DLA Piper famously reported something like 15,000 hours of overtime just to rebuild its IT systems after the NotPetya attack back in 2017. Beyond that, there's the catastrophic reputational harm. I mean, the core currencies of the legal profession are trust and confidentiality, right? A breach shatters that, especially if clients learn about it from the media first, or worse, directly from the hackers themselves.
And that loss of trust, I imagine, directly translates to clients walking away, client flight.
Precisely. A 2025 survey found 37% of clients were willing to pay a premium for stronger cybersecurity from their firms. The inverse is equally true. Clients won't hesitate to fire firms over poor security practices, especially after an incident. Losing even one major client can have significant financial repercussions, but the widespread erosion of trust across the client base can lead to a broader exodus, really undermining the very foundation of the firm.
And beyond the financial and reputational damage, there's also this specter of malpractice claims. How is data security failure becoming viewed as a breach of ethical duties now?
Yeah, data security failure is increasingly being framed as a breach of a lawyer's core professional and ethical duties. The ABA Model Rule 1.1 on competence, for example, now explicitly includes technological competence, and Rule 1.6 on confidentiality requires lawyers to make reasonable efforts to prevent unauthorized disclosure or access to client information.
Reasonable effort seems key there.
It is. The standard isn't perfection. Firms aren't expected to be impenetrable fortresses, but they must take proactive, documented steps commensurate with the risks. Groundbreaking cases like Wangui v. Clark Hill, PLC, have upheld that failing to meet this reasonable care standard for data security can indeed be grounds for malpractice claims.
So firms can actually be held directly liable for financial losses stemming from a breach.
Yes, the trend is definitely heading that way. The Millard v. Doran case involved liability for pretty basic security failures that enabled a $2 million wire transfer theft. And that 2025 DeLuca v. Sutter Williams LLC case we mentioned earlier, that shows direct liability for failing to verify wire instructions, leading to that $442,600 loss from an estate. While proving causation in these claims can still be challenging, the link is becoming clearer, especially when there are direct financial losses tied demonstrably to a firm's cybersecurity negligence.
And then, just when a firm needs it most after an incident, it sounds like the insurance safety net might be shrinking or harder to access. That sounds like a truly painful catch-22.
It really is a quagmire, as the source suggests. Standard malpractice insurance policies typically don't cover many cyber incident costs, things like forensic investigations, credit monitoring for affected individuals, or ransom payments, and dedicated cyber insurance. Well, that market is currently hard. Premiums have soared, and underwriting standards are incredibly tight now because insurers have faced a surge in claims. Firms have to prove they have a genuinely mature security program with controls like multi-factor authentication everywhere, advanced endpoint protection, EDR, regular effective security training, and a properly tested incident response plan just to even get coverage in the first place. And even then, there's a high risk of the claim being denied if the firm is found to have failed to maintain the security controls they attested to having, or if they didn't report the incident immediately as required by the policy. This creates what the source calls a liability loop, where one single incident can trigger multiple interconnected crises, class action lawsuits, malpractice claims, regulatory fines, and potentially an insurance denial, all hitting at the same time and multiplying the damage.
That is certainly an overwhelming picture. But our source, the Resilient Law Firm, it also provides a crucial blueprint for survival for navigating this. Let's dive deeper into this, because it's clearly not just a checklist of technologies to buy, right? It sounds like a whole new way of operating, thinking, even building the firm's culture. It's about what you might call defensible resilience.
Yeah, and a key point to remember here is that the legal and regulatory standard firms are generally held to is one of reasonable efforts. So if a breach does occur, the defense isn't just about having the latest firewall. It's about being able to demonstrate a comprehensive risk-based approach with documented controls, continuous training, regularly tested plans, and robust governance. And this really starts with embracing the zero trust mandate. Never trust, always verify.
Okay, what does that never trust, always verify, zero trust approach actually mean in practice for a law firm day to day?
Well, fundamentally, it means granting what's called least privilege access. Users, partners, staff, everyone only gets access to the specific data and systems absolutely necessary for their job and nothing more. It also involves micro-segmentation, essentially building digital watertight compartments in your network. So if one part gets breached, it doesn't automatically compromise the entire system.
Containing the blast radius.
Exactly. Pervasive multi-factor authentication, MFA, across all systems. Email, document management, remote access, everything is absolutely non-negotiable now. And continuous authentication and monitoring are crucial to detect suspicious behavior during a session, not just at login.
And since we've established humans are so often the primary point of failure, how do firms effectively fortify that human firewall? Is it just more training?
It's more than just ticking a box for annual training. It's about building a genuine culture of proactive vigilance, not just reactive fear. This requires advanced, continuous training, yes, but also realistic phishing simulations that actually mimic the sophisticated AI-generated attacks employees will face. And critically, leadership must champion cybersecurity as a core professional value. It needs to be integrated into regular firm discussions, partner meetings, and individuals need to be held accountable for following secure practices. It has to come from the top.
Makes sense. Beyond people in the zero trust tech, there's the crucial governance framework underpinning everything. What are the absolute essentials there?
A comprehensive governance framework is key. It absolutely demands a robust incident response plan, or IRP. Shockingly, the source says only 34% of law firms currently have one that's properly documented and tested.
Only 34%.
Yeah. This IRP needs to be a detailed, practical playbook defining roles, responsibilities, communication protocols for every step of responding to a breach. And it must be tested regularly through tabletop exercises at least annually. Rigorous vendor risk management is also critical now. Thorough due diligence before onboarding any third-party provider, looking for security certifications like ISO 27001, and having strong contractual clauses mandating security standards and breach notification.
Right, managing that supply chain risk.
Exactly. And importantly, clear data governance and AI policies are needed. Protocols for classifying data, handling it, storing it securely, disposing of it properly. And critically, given our earlier discussion, a specific AI acceptable use policy to prevent sensitive data leakage when staff use generative AI tools. Partner-level oversight is also essential. The CISO, or whoever holds that equivalent responsibility, must have a voice and influence at the highest leadership level of the firm.
And finally, pulling it all together, what about the strategic technology investments firms should be prioritizing to support all this resilience?
Well, some essential technologies include strong encryption for all sensitive data, both when it's stored at rest and when it's being transmitted in transit. That's fundamental. Firms really need to move beyond traditional antivirus software to advanced endpoint detection and response, or EDR/XDR solutions. These provide much deeper visibility into what's happening on laptops and servers and offer better threat hunting and response capabilities. And perhaps most crucially, a robust, secure, and tested backup strategy is the absolute last line of defense against things like ransomware. Following the 3-2-1 rule is good practice 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types with 1 copy stored offsite, preferably air-gapped.
Air-gapped meaning completely disconnected.
Totally disconnected from the network and internet. Think physical tape stored securely or immutable cloud backups. And these backups need to be tested regularly to ensure they actually work when you need them. For firms lacking deep in-house expertise, strategic outsourcing to specialized managed security service providers, MSSPs, can be highly effective. But again, it's crucial to do rigorous due diligence and find providers with specific expertise in the legal sector's unique challenges and compliance needs. This is actually where resources like our sponsor, CISOmarketplace.com, can be quite valuable, helping firms find and vet the right security solutions and expert partners tailored to their specific requirements.
This has certainly been an incredibly enlightening, at times, pretty sobering deep dive. We've really explored how law firms find themselves at this perilous crossroads in 2025. They're facing a kind of perfect storm, aren't they? AI-powered cyber attackers, these persistent human vulnerabilities, a truly dizzying array of global regulations, and escalating consequences that go far, far beyond just financial loss. What seems absolutely clear from the analysis is that cybersecurity has fundamentally shifted. It's now foundational to a law firm's ethics. its basic viability, and ultimately its ability to effectively serve its clients.
Indeed. The Resilient Law Firm report clearly shows us that this isn't merely a technical issue delegated to the IT department anymore. Not by a long shot. It's a core strategic imperative that directly impacts a firm's reputation, its client relationships, its regulatory standing, and even its basic legal standing in this new digital reality.
Ultimately, for law firms navigating 2025 and beyond, cybersecurity isn't just another expense line or a compliance checkbox to tick off. It's a critical, ongoing strategic investment. The firms that truly embrace this reality, the ones that prioritize proactive vigilance, build that security culture, and implement robust governance, well, they will not just survive, but they'll likely thrive and build lasting trust in what's clearly increasingly treacherous digital landscape. Those that don't, well, they risk becoming another cautionary tale, another headline. So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe ask yourself, how will your organization approach resilience in a world where trust itself can be weaponized and where AI stands as this incredibly powerful double-edged sword?